Hey guys, Julian here, and today I want to talk a little bit about successful outcomes of therapy. What does healing in therapy actually look like? So, I got a question for you. If you go to a doctor or a therapist because you're suffering in life, say you have something like depression, what do you expect that doctor or therapist to be able to do for you? What is the successful outcome of therapy? I think a belief develops here, which is, and I see this quite a bit, which is that we expect the doctor, the therapist, the helper to take away our pain, to change the dynamics, or to heal the circumstance for us. In other words, we'd like to be cured. Now, I see this all the time, and I've done it myself where we want the magic pill or the magical healer to take away our pain. In other words, we want to cure the thing that we're working through, depression in this case. If we look at healing just as the removal of symptoms, I think that we miss a large picture of what healing actually is. You see, the function of a therapist or a doctor is not to actually heal you, but to provide the right circumstances for you to heal yourself. For instance, if you have a wound, an injury, and you go to a doctor and they treat that wound or injury, they don't actually heal you. Rather, they provide the right circumstances for your body to heal itself. In other words, all the wisdom that knows how to heal is inside of us. We just have to reconnect with it by creating the right conditions for it to emerge. But there are only very specific things that a therapist can do to help us heal, such as being present and attuned to our emotional experience. Here, they can help us see and recognize and identify the patterns that are keeping us stuck in these cycles of suffering, and ultimately to exercise choices, responsibility, and agency. However, knowing how to do this is not enough. We must apply. So, the way a therapist really can help somebody is by applying all these principles in their own life. So, by a therapist walking the path themselves and applying these principles, they can help other individuals to find that path themselves, to reconnect with that wisdom that's inside of them. Now, let me take a moment to explain how therapists might miss that path entirely. Last week, I had a therapist reach out to be on the podcast, and he told me that he has 80,000 hours of client therapy that he's done. Now, think about that for a minute. 80,000 hours. Let's do that math really quick. This means that this therapist saw 8 clients a day for an hour each, 40 hours a week, 52 weeks out of the year for 38 and a half years. So, at what point does the therapy get reduced down to a basic transaction where he spends an hour with you, you pay him X amount of dollars, we rinse and repeat, we show up next week, and no progress is made? And I don't really blame this guy. I'm not criticizing or judging him for it. The system, our society, oftentimes rewards volume over presence. But what keeps somebody working at that pace for decades? Is it a sense of value, meaning, being important and needed by other people? I think that many people who get into caregiving professions arrive here because they have experienced pain, hardship, difficulties, instability, helplessness, and the need to be important and be valued by somebody. I know that was the case for me. And so, if somebody enters caregiving without a clear understanding of their wounds, needs, or motivations, those unresolved dynamics can show up and shape the way that they relate with their clients. And this brings me to my last point, which is when a therapist lacks the capacity to work with or be present with their own internal dynamics, they'll often struggle to recognize those dynamics in somebody else. And if they don't have the ability to do this practice, they certainly can't teach it to somebody else. And see, this might be why therapy often focuses on what's going wrong rather than what's going right. If we can't address what's going right with a pattern that is causing us pain, we can't step outside of it. For instance, an addiction to work might provide escape. It might provide a sense of value or external validation. Without understanding the function of a pattern, we can't replace it consciously. Now, of course, looking at these patterns is difficult, and the majority of us would like to bypass looking at them. But we have to be able to recognize these patterns and identify what fundamental unmet needs are being fulfilled by these patterns. And then we have to find ways to meet those needs in more healthy, constructive ways. And so, in this sense, I think that genuine healing requires us to cultivate presence, self awareness, boundaries, vision, and a functional relationship with our internal world. And unfortunately, many therapists and doctors were not given the space, the time, or the support to cultivate this practice for themselves. Again, healing requires you to learn how to relate with yourself with awareness, presence, honesty, and intention. And if a therapist can't do that for themselves, there's almost no way that they can help you learn how to do that. Remember, no authority figure can ultimately tell you how to live your life in a way that is best for you. A good helper is one who helps you to reconnect with the wisdom, the awareness, and the truth that already lives inside of you. And a great helper is one who has already mastered this practice for themselves before helping others.